You don't need a big budget to positively impact the mental health of your people. So, if you're a manager or if you're an HR person looking after managers, you can really help leaders play a critical role in the mental health of their people. And the best thing is, it doesn't cost much. And in this video, we're going to give you 10 simple things that your leaders can do this week to relieve the burden of unnecessary stress, worry, and overwhelm on your people. And the positive impact is that it can have a really optimal effect on the working of your team, provide real clarity, and increase levels of performance. Microsoft did a survey of 31,000 people worldwide recently, and they found that 2 out of 3 people said that they struggle to find time and energy to do their actual job, the things that they're actually responsible and accountable for. So, what that means is people are actually having unnecessary stress from not being able to do the work. So, what we're going to do is need 10 tips, and it won't involve anything like providing fruit bowls or anything like that, the other wellbeing initiatives. It's just good practical leadership disciplines. So, here we go. Here's your 10. So, number one is sit down and clarify the expectations between you and your direct reports. So, this means sitting down and just really defining what good looks like, what decision making authority they have, the scope of their role. And the idea basically is that your people aren't wasting mental energy unnecessarily trying to please you or trying to guess what good looks like, satisfactory performance looks like to enable that they're safe. And that releases a lot of mental energy. Number two is set clear priorities for your team. So this means, again, sitting down with your people and reviewing the team's priorities. And the idea basically is to ensure that workloads are realistic. Now, teams often have too many priorities at any one time. And what you need to do is to sit together and decide, what are you going to kill off? What are you going to deprioritize? And anything that's not essential right now, just be really clear what are the main things. And that really clears up the people to actually do their work and focus on what's most important. Number three is ensure you provide positive feedback for your team members' contributions. So it's just a really quick, easy, cheap win. So what you do is you just literally try and find your people in the act of doing the right thing, or acknowledge something that they've done great, or just recognize or appreciate just the positive contribution that they bring. And what this does, this positive feedback, it actually helps people feel more secure in their roles, and they understand that their role is actually meaningful and it's appreciated. And just that feeling of security and safety releases a lot of energy for people as well, and unnecessary stress. And we would always say to managers to have an aspiration to have a ratio of 5 to 1. So that's 5 parts positive feedback to 1 part critique. Number four is if you delegate any tasks or responsibilities to your team members, be realistic. Ask them, because they're taking on this, what are they going to stop doing or defer? And the idea basically is to give them the capacity to dedicate their full effort to the thing you're delegating to them. So ask them the question, if you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? Number five is ask your direct reports to actually assess their level of stress and or workload. So what you do basically is we really like to get people to assess numerical values about how they're feeling at any particular time, because that gives you access into how they're feeling and it gets them to articulate it. So you just give them a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 being completely under control and 10 being like burnout or overwhelmed, and ask them to score themselves. And when they give you an answer of, say, 8, which is high, ask them, what can you do together to reduce that to a 7? So it's practical and it's just a small step, but it starts to get people on the right trajectory. And also, an additional question you can ask is, what is your tolerance? So for some people, their tolerance is a 7 or an 8. For some people, their level of stress, their tolerance about what they can bear could be a 5. So again, it gives you a really informed conversation and allows you to adapt to people's requirements. Number 6 is if there is any uncertainty around certain decisions or situations that are hanging over people that might be causing stress, then as a manager, use your position to take the time to clarify these things. And if you can't clarify it, so if it's a decision around a promotion or feedback or a consultation or whatever it is, you can be really clear. And if you can't find an answer, then manage their expectations and let them know exactly when that decision will be made. Number 7 is be the change that you seek in others. So that's all about role modeling constructive behaviors. So again, this is the focus on improving people's mental health and well-being. So that means not sending any messages or emails or requests outside of working hours, and agree principles with your team around the hours of communication. So we don't send emails after 6 o'clock in the evening, or we don't send emails in the evening. So you may be a parent and you may have to work around your kids' childcare, whatever, but set a time on your emails so they don't go out at 11 o'clock on a Saturday, because people look at the manager and say, that is how I need to behave around here to get on in my career and to make me feel safe. And that sends a really negative message out. Number 8 is audit the different communication platforms that your team uses. So be really clear what platforms are used for what. So if you use Slack for informal comms, then you use email for certain comms, we use team meetings. So it's just really clear how communication is actually done. And then assess the level of traffic so that people aren't unnecessarily interrupted. So if you've got a really overused Slack channel that's constantly interrupting people, or email that's constantly interrupting people, then try and make sure that you're reducing that so people aren't interrupted by constant unnecessary communication and requests. People chunk their communication together. Number 9 is respecting the boundaries of your employees. So you may well have people on compressed hours or part-time people. So it's really important that you and the people on your team respect those boundaries. So speak to your team and make sure that no one makes requests of these people on their non-working days. So an emotion that we often find with lots of people that work not full-time or less hours or reduced hours, whatever, there's a feeling of guilt compared to their colleagues because they can't get everything done. And so if they can see the requests are piling up where they're off, they're more likely to check their email, and therefore they're more likely to work on their day off because they don't want to start the next week behind. So get them to respect those boundaries. And number 10, and very much last but not least, is to follow the example of organizations like Slack and agree core hours. So these are core hours when everybody should be available for meetings, project collaboration, and sort of general exchanges of information and talk. So if you set hours of, say, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., then that's when it all happens. And what that does is that then frees up lots of time throughout the day. So people can then dedicate uninterrupted time to complete their work tasks rather than having to do their work either before or after working hours when they're less likely to be disturbed. So there you go. There's your 10, super practical within the domain of any capable manager. So we encourage you to try those things. It's not an exhaustive list. So what we'd love to do is, if you have any strategies that either you use or you recommend to managers to improve the mental health of their people, then please share them in the chat below. So we run lots of videos like this regularly. So if you found this useful, we put tips out almost every week. So please subscribe to the channel and ting the bell. And then what we'll do, you'll be notified when every video that we send comes out. Thanks a lot.